So, very good evening. My name is Dr. Shan Bhatti and we have been working on PHP. In last class we discussed about reading data from PHP form. Today I thought let's do a very fun exercise, and what we will be doing is we will be creating a simple website called CV Creator, and we will be creating our own CV based on the content the user provides on its form. So the basic task is that we will provide a form to the user. We will have a multiple pages. We will process the data from one page to another, and then in the end it will generate a complete CV for us. We will still not be using database at this moment, so don't question me about that. Later on, basically the task is that we will convert the same website into a database website. So we're just breaking it into two different parts. So for now, basically we will be using a simple website generator, CV generator website that will have multiple pages, and we will try to transfer the PHP data that is saved in a form from one form to another form on a different PHP page, from a second form to third form, and then finally generate a complete web page layout. For the web page, I have downloaded a template, and I will try to see if we can fill this template in and use the data. So the idea is to again use a template as well as create a simple HTTP PHP form. Let's begin. Okay, now we begin with, for example, going into Sublime. Obviously, I have a basic template already created for me. What we did, this is again the template that I have done in my CSS lectures. If you have been watching CSS layout, this is creating a simple CSS layout lecture number, I think 14, in which I have created this complete layout. I'm just using the same file. I just renamed it to CV Creator, some sublinks, and there's nothing else to it. Okay, so this template is already we discussed that in one of the previous lectures. So I have an HTML available for me there. Now within this CSS content area, for example, provide user information. Okay, so this basic user information can be anything. For our case, we can have provide user information. Sorry. Okay, let's just create a very simple form. Okay, now in order to create the form, what I can do is in order to ensure that the form elements and data are all organized in a correct manner, I use something called table. Okay, what tables allows us to do is that it allows us to organize the form elements nicely. And if in a previous example, if you remember the name and father name, the text fields tend to shuffle and temper. What we do here is we provide something called table heading, and this can be my personal information, INFORMATION information. Okay, backslash table header. Then within the table header, I have something called table row. Okay, and then within the table row, basically I have something called table data. Okay, obviously I can close the table data and I will close the table row. So now within this one row I have one data, but obviously I will try to put more inside this content. So here basically we will be name, for example, in my table data, and this will be my input, and the type obviously will be text. The name obviously is important in PHP because based on this name, the PHP server file will read the input text data. So do make sure that you give some meaningful name. My pretext is that I always use txt for a text field, btn for button or radio button or whatever basic name is there. So in this case, I use txt, and with txt, I will obviously write name here. So now it basically means that I have a text field name. One other thing we like to do is we now to give it something called required, which is HTML5 data parameter, which means that this field is now required or compulsory. Okay, for the user. So once we have this is one table row data. The next table row data is my father name. So I can have another table data and backslash table data. In fact, let's just create this, Ctrl X, just like this. Okay, in fact what I was supposed to do was with the table data form, I changed it completely. Okay, if I come here and I give backslash table data and then table data here, so basically table data name and in front of it is this name. So if I save it, let me show you what basically I mean to do. Okay, if I'm understanding it myself correctly. Yes, got it. So let's come back into our server again. Now I have saved this file in something called CV Creator. So if I go into my XAMPP folder, inside XAMPP folder I have called htdocs. Inside htdocs I create another folder called CV Creator. Inside the CV Creator I have this index.html PHP file, okay, which I'm basically working on. So this is same thing. I think this was the this is not the correct file. Let me just delete it. So we have in index.php file available. Now again I have coded this file in my previous CSS lecture, so you can follow that, creating a responsive website layout 3-column. If you search it, you will find this out. Now we have a simple table form and I have saved it in my form. So I come back here and I go into localhost CV Creator, and as soon as I press enter, you get this information. So personal user information, personal user data, name, and then there's a text field. Because we created this in a table form, so name and text field basically appear in a formal way. So if I come back here and now if I add another data, so let me just copy this and add another table row. Let me just bring the tab here. This time it will be, for example, father name. We need to include, if we want to include that, or whatever field basically you want to include in this case you want. So in this way, Fname is there, Ctrl S. So because this is now second row, this is now second row, if I save it, Ctrl S, go back into my browser, hit a refresh. So father name. See this, the form is actually nicely laid out and organized in a proper manner. So we have two fields available. Then I come back here, add a third field called, for example, gender, 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 depending on what data you want to include here. For our sake, let's just make it something called radio. Input type, let's just make it a radio button, because usually we provide male and female, so there's two options, no point in writing. So in order to create a radio button, we just use the word radio, and then the name would be, for example, gender, gender in a small letters I can use. Okay, this will be my radio button. In fact, if RDO and then I use G. Okay, so RDO is basically my understandable abbreviation for radio. So we specified as render. What the value needs to be, because these are radio buttons, so we said value is equal to male, and sorry, MALE, male. Yeah, okay. Double quotation start and double quotations close. Okay, again in HTML5 these are not necessary, but still we need to, we just following certain rules. So yes, we created one thing, and let me just write the male here. Oh, sorry, male here, MALE, male. Okay, now what we did is we created another input type, radio. We named it radio gender, gave it a value, and that value basically is also required, and we gave it, it's a caption called male. Then come back here, I copy this field again, Control C, inside it, in front of it, we give another radio button, because again the radio means we need two options. The name is again radio gender. Now basically this, based on the name, it will group it automatically. The value of this is basically female. The value is here again in a radio button important, because radio is just a button, user clicks on it. The user doesn't enters the data. What should happen when a user clicks on submit button? Actually, whichever value is selected, the data will be processed from here, and we can enter female here. Let me see this. If I come back here, hit a refresh and see this. So we have a gender, we have a male button, we have a female button. So now in the end, when we'll add a submit button, what would happen is that once we click on a submit button and user has selected a certain value, so whatever value is selected is sent, but the value is not this word. The value is actually this word that is behind it. If I change something as, for example, X male and X female, so now the word for this data that will be sent to the server will be X male and X female, not the word male and female in an input radio button. So in the radios, it's quite important that we give a correct value. So we have now a male value given to it. Okay, what else can we give? Whatever data you want to put. So for now, let's have this thing in this order. Then maybe okay, let's just use another table row and backslash table row. Inside table row again I use input, in fact sorry, Control Z. So first we need to add table data, okay, and backslash table data. Inside table data, let's just add religion, okay, and colon. That's one table data, and then the second table data can be, for example, again input. So that's why we do copy paste lots often. This time let me just use the text. Again, we can give a drop down menu here, we can give a radio buttons here depending on what you want to do. So this time I will just give text religion, the religion. So I know that it's my religion that I'm entering, and then Control C, we can add another value called, for example, CNIC colon, and this can be text CNIC. Control S, save this file, go back into your browser, hit a refresh, and you will find a simple form being created. So now whatever form you need to do, whatever data you want to process, you give that data. In our case, I've just used 5-6 fields and I want to process it. Okay, let's just add, for example, drop down menu. If you need to add a drop down menu, again what I'll do, I will just copy this table row and paste it here. This can be country, for example, country country, and within our country, again I will use input. So a country, and instead of using input, I will just come here and remove this input, and I will use something called select. Okay, select, and the name of, sorry, not here, select name will be, for example, country, country, and come back here. Now select is basically a statement that we use when we have a drop down list or multiple list, okay, within our forms. I don't know if we've talked about this previously or not. And within select we give something called options, for example, PAKIST and Pakistan. And then we come back here, and other options can be, for example, MALAYSA Malaysia. For example, we can give OPTIU option called TURKY Turkey, or whatever other countries you basically would like to mention here. Typically, again, all countries are supposed to go, but let's just give 4 or 5 countries here. Okay, we have Malaysia, Turkey, China, or whatever countries you want to give the name here, or whatever other fields you have. So Control S here, come back here, hit a refresh, and now you see we have a country menu, and we can have the different values available. Okay, so whichever country you want to select, basically select that particular country. Now this is a simple form. Inputs, again, I've just pasted in a table form. It's not necessary that you do, but sometimes it allows me to control whatever content we are basically doing. I have used this in here. We could have put this in a 3-column structure or in a different format. So again, my formatting or page designing is not the target. That's why I just put it here. We could have put, for example, name, father name, gender, and all these 3 in a 3-column structure, but for our sake, I think this is just a better way to do it, easy way to do it. Okay, so a simple form is created. Now what we need to do is we need to go and add a button called submit. Okay, so in this case, for example, I can delete the 3-column, but let me just put it here. After this table row, let me create another table row and / table row. Inside this table row, we have a table data and / table data. Inside this table data, we create something called input. This time the type would be submit. Okay, usually we use the button submit, basically because the submit is a default button that has built-in code inside it, that whenever user clicks on it, the event is triggered. The event is triggered that whenever user clicks on this, take the data and send it to a particular form. Now one mistake we did already with this is that we did not create a form. We directly went and started creating the inputs, if I am correct. Yes, we started working with a table and we created a table, but we didn't create a form. So that's a good thing. So now what happens is, once we click on submit, okay, if I save it, I come back here, refresh this page. If I click on submit, see, nothing happens. That's because first, obviously, we need to put the data in. We fill the data and we hit the submit, again nothing happens, because the submit by default has a function that send the data to a certain location using a certain method. Okay, but we have not provided that. So what we need to do now is we need to create a form, because once the submit is clicked, all this input data, only the input data is sent, not the table tags, only the input form data is sent to your server. That's the beauty of it. Okay, so it automatically, in other words, filters it, everything. So if I come back here, I create something called form. I give it a name, which can be, for example, CV, or personal data. In fact, let me just use data PERSONL, personal, because that's what it's supposed to do. Then we use something called action. action basically defines that what should happen now once the user clicks on that submit button that we just mentioned. So once the user clicks on that submit button by default has the code that send the data to your PHP server. So whatever file we specify here will be used here. So in this case we will say that okay, let's just use it, for example, okay, let me just think of a name right now. I'm not getting name. And then there's something called method, method. Method is usually post. Okay, post basically is a default method that we use to send the data to the server. Okay, action is again the file name that we need to specify, which basically means that what should happen when the user is basically receiving this data. Okay, so what we now need to do is we need to process this data and submit it. So once we have this, we can say, for example, cv output.php. So I create a file called cv output.php. Okay, I save this data. So whatever form data I have created here, I need to print it on a form called cv output data. But in fact, before this, let's for example, one other cool trick we can do. For example, we need to process this data and we need to print it output somewhere else. Okay, so what we do is, instead of cv output right now, what I can do is, for example, let's just give it biodata.php. okay, so I create another page. So what I do, Ctrl S, and then I go into file and hit a save as. Okay, and save the same page as biodata.php. okay, so what I do is, if I've named it correctly, yes, so I save the same page as biodata.php, click on save. So I have two pages exactly the same. So come back here and provide user information. Instead of personal information, now I will write biodata information. Okay, this basically means that now this is page number 2. I come here and give my form data, form name. Let the form name be same. Okay, and biodata page. Okay, yeah, so this is biodata page. Okay, so this is biodata page. Now within this page again we have something called text name, but instead of text name, now what I will do is I will name it, for example, email. So basically user is supposed to provide me with an email, and instead of name I will say email. Email. And instead of father name, basically I'm just reusing the page. Okay, so instead of father name I can have, for example, contact, and then in text here I can have, for example, contact. Then again, instead of gender, let's just delete the gender because I don't need this, I guess. Table row, I think let's just delete this entire row. Zip. Okay, there we go. For example, I can have something called address, ADDRES, address, input type text, txt, ADDRE, address. Okay, and then I think religion, country, all this data is basically not readed and are deleted. So I have now a second page that only takes email, contact, and address. Okay, what now we did is we have a simple area. I press Ctrl S, this biodata is page saved. I go into my, where's my index gone? File, open, and I open my index page. So this is my index page, I save it. Let's view it on the browser. So I come back here, hit a refresh, this page is visible. I enter some data, click on mail, I enter some data, I enter religion, and I enter a country, and I click on submit. Now what, another page is loaded called bio information. Okay, simple as that. So basically what we did, we created one page and then we click on submit, and now second page is there. On the second page I can remove these bottom columns because I don't need them right now. So let me just delete these columns. So let's make the page more simplified version. So hit a refresh and continue. It says it's a server page. It needs a form which is blank. So in fact, let me just go back, hit a refresh, and then hit a submit. Oh, I think I removed it from one page, and then biodata, and delete this tag all over. Ctrl S. That's what we did here. That's what we did here. So let's just simplify the pages. Okay, so we have this page, refresh. I have one page. I enter the some data, hit on mail, click on submit. What it will do, it will load the second page. Didn't we save it? Hit a refresh, continue. Thank you. Okay, so now we have two simple pages available for us. However, what happened to the first data we entered here? Typically, when we click on submit, this data is sent to the server. The data should be read by the server, saved in a database, and then processed further. However, we are not using database right now, so I need to send this data onto this second page. So we have used post method, but again in the second page we have some other information. Let me go back and create a third page in this case. So biodata is there. I go file and save as, and I say biodata 2. Okay, this is biodata 1. I think I should have named it biodata 1. So again biodata and biodata 2, and this is supposed to be a PHP file again, so I save it as a PHP file. So now I open the biodata 1 file. And in fact, let me just rename it. Biodata 1, this is index biodata 1, this is biodata 2. So I open it. Okay, now what we did, we have something called index file. When the data is sent by index file, submit button is pressed, it is sent to something called biodata 1. Biodata 1 again has few more questions. So it's like a form 2 which has few more questions. Once it is there, now I come back into biodata 3 page. Once we are at the 3 page, basically now it takes few more data, like for example we can have professional information, professional information. Okay, and we create text field, for example, instead of your email, I can define, for example, your school, where was your school, and then input type text, name of your school. Text can be, for example, SCHUL school. So you provide your school name, passing year or whatever. Then I can have, let's have a calendar in fact. So at school input, and then in front of input here, table data. Yes, let's add another table data, backslash table data. Okay, in front of school, let's have a passing year. So in order to have a passing year, we need to have another text field called date. So backslash input, and we add a text field called date. Now date, I believe, is HTML5 text. You might not find it in older versions, but now since we are in HTML5, we need to use a date, and it will automatically, and it should have something called date should automatically have something called calendar, SCHWL school, name school, simple as that. Okay, so if I copy now this, if I copy this entire row, Control C, Control V, Control V, 3 times, school, what comes after school? College, COLLEG, college, and then I think university, UNIVRSIT, university, and then this is text school, so I will just change it COLLEGE, college, and this is text univ. Okay, now what we did, we created 3 input fields called text school, text college, text univ. In front of each of these texts, we added another field called date school, date COLLEGE college, and then finally date what we call UNIV. Okay, I save this page. This is called biodata page. Now the purpose is that once user goes inside the index file, he submits, the data is sent to biodata 1. This page loads, it asks for few more data. When I click on submit, then this page appears. So in biodata 1, the form that we created, where is the form, where is the form, where is the form? Oh, here is the form. Okay, this form needs to have a name, personal data, I don't mind that. Action biodata, now this is supposed to be true. So when user clicks on this page, it is supposed to go from index. If I come back here on index page, let's just rename it biodata 1. So once I click on this form data, add the my input value. Okay, after the table, let me just close this, backslash form. Okay, so we forgot to close that. So basically it goes to biodata 1. So from index, once we click on submit, the action is go to biodata 1. The biodata 1 page is loaded. Inside biodata 1 page, we have another form, and then we have something called a submit button. Submit means automatically submit the form where called biodata 2. Now biodata 2 page will load. Once biodata 2 page is loaded, we have something called submit button, and we have created our university information, start and end date. Okay, and I can delete the contact information, address, and all the remaining files. Okay, Control S. Let's just test the system up till now. So we come back here and we go into CV creator and we just enter. So the default page is loaded, personal user information, CV created, enter name. In our case, we enter the name, father name, okay, our mail, CNIC, for example, the number. Currently validation is not done. I will talk about validation in next class. Okay, so we already have some forms created and we will talk about PHP validation. Pakistan. So I have entered some data here. Typically in future sessions we will be basically adding the same thing to the database, but for now, because we are not talking about database, I click on submit. The data is lost. Keep this thing in mind. Now another page is visible. I enter an email address here, I enter my contact, I enter my data, I click on submit. Then the third page is loaded, which gives me an error. Oops, and requesting URL was not found on the server. Okay, because see this URL biodata PHP, that means we have not been able to save the file correctly. So if I come back into my code, search for the form tag. Okay, this is like PHP data 2. What should happen once this, I think this is one form biodata. Okay, I haven't saved it PHP 2, and then once we are here, this will load my, for now let's just write index and let me just save. So I save this, Control S, go back into my browser, go back, hit a refresh. The page you are looking for used information that you entered. Returning to the page might cause the action you took to repeated. Continue, and we hit a submit. Please fill out the field. See, okay, we have provided this as a required field. Okay, that is why. Now this is again HTML5 code. If you provide it required and if you leave it blank, there is no validation required. And on the next tab, we click on submit, it will automatically give us message. So we haven't done any validation, we just said give required, and it's automatically validating my form that whether it's blank or not. Okay, so I enter some data, click on submit, and now the third value is available. It's school and text field, school and text field, school and text field. So why is text field? If we come back into the data, if I read it, oh, okay, sorry, I've written input type as data. I need to write as date. I need to write it as date. I need to write it as date. So that's a correction that we made in all three things. Okay, so input type date, input type date, input type date. What this basically means is that if I Control S this guy, go back into my system and let's just enter the URL again from the top, press enter, CV creator, personal information, the home page is visible. I have my page. If I click on submit, it gives me an error, you cannot submit a blank file, again because I've used in my index file a required field. So I need to enter some data. I need to enter some data, mail, and then some data and some data. Select a particular country, for example, click on submit, and the next page is visible. Okay, what happened to the data? It's gone. I talk about that. Then email, then address, click on submit. Now another page is visible. Okay, what happened? That the second data, again it's gone. So we go school, college, a name, specify, we have a calendar. See this, a beautiful calendar appears. We just select a particular date. From this, that means your start date for that calendar, and then we can have a close button and form is validated. Okay, so we have this information up till now created. In our biodata page, input, and I think I deleted the submit button. Okay, so input submit, submit, and name can also be submit. Okay, so now once we click on the submit button, it should have that value available. This was supposed to go inside table row. Okay, and this as table row, backslash, Control S. After the dig, we have to close the form. Sorry. Okay, so the form is again closed because we started the form before the table and we closed it. Even in biodata, again we have, if I come back here, see this, we started the form, but I believe we have not closed it. So after the table, we go and give it form, Control S, so that it basically works fine. Now what happened to the data? What we tried to do? What we tried to do here is we basically created 3 different HTML PHP files. They all have simple form data. That's it. Okay, so up till now, this is nothing typically happening. The only major thing is happening is that we have index file. Once we click on submit, biodata 1 is loaded. Once we click submit, biodata 2 is loaded. Once we click on submit, we can have many other pages for that matter. Okay, so we have these 3 pages available for us. So if I come back here, we have index file, we have biodata 1, we have biodata 2 page. Okay, finally we need a final page which basically emits the output. But in order to first process the output, we need to understand that how we are going to read the data without the database. So we come back to HTML. Now HTML, once the user submits the form, the data is sent. Okay, this data is sent to where? To this biodata1 PHP using a method called post. What happens is that once the user clicks on the submit button, the data that you entered in your form is encapsulated in URL and sent to the server based on your action, or which is basically this file name. So your data is sent to this file on the server. So this is our file on the server. This file receives the data. Where it receives the data? It receives in something called PHP. So what I can do here is before my HTML, I can write this code called PHP. Okay, we all know that this is code that we write for PHP. Usually we can write this within the HTML as well, within the body as well, wherever you want. So it's no compulsion. For me, just to simplify things, I wrote it outside the PHP. In this case, basically what we did is we need to process the information. Now what we do is we need to read the data. We need to process the data that is coming from the previous PHP file. Okay, from index data is coming, and this is the file on the server. This can read that data. So we need to process and capture that data and read it and process it. And that processing does also mean writing the data on a database as well. So if, for example, if you need to read the data and write it on database, forget about this page. Again, you would need to process data. How we do that? We go inside here and we create, for example, a variable called name is equals to $_ post bracket star bracket close. Okay, and then here we write txt name semicolon. What we did now is this is biodata. We told it that this file will be loaded automatically based on an action or method that was taken by another file. So user will not call this file. They can, but they won't be. This file will be invoked automatically by another HTML. Once they do, this file would be passed down a data and it will inherit some data in an array called post. Okay, this post is basically a variable that is by default present created by PHP. Okay, this post is used here. Okay, so when we said method post, this means that take the data of a form, post it, and in this file we received that post data. Okay, in this file we said post the data to this particular PHP file. So only this file will be able to read this data at the moment. Okay, and then we will just go here and name the variable. So $$ Fname is equals to $_ post bracket star bracket close. Now this is a sign of an array because the data that is received in the post is in form of array. So we are actually accessing the array elements based on the name. So f name name semicolon. Similarly, we come back here and we see which other data we are sending. So if I go back here, text name, father name, and RDO gender. So what I will do here is for example, just use a gender is equals to $_ post bracket start bracket close, and in this case we will use same thing, gender gender. Okay, if I have named the variables correctly, RDO gender. So I will say RDO GDER semicolon. So now what we are doing, whatever and data was written in this one HTML file has been sent to the second, and the second is now reading that data of the form based on the names that we have specified here. So if I come back here, $CNIC is equals to $_ post bracket start and within this quotation marks. Okay, here basically I will just write I think txt cnic if I name the variables correctly, okay, and semicolon, Control S. So these are the four basic, I think religion is also there, sorry. So let's just come back here. Dollar religion, religion, religion is equals to dollar underscore post bracket start bracket close inverted quotations. Here basically we need to specify txt religion, religion, semicolon, dollar, for example we have country, country, country is equals to, again same thing, bracket starts. Okay, so see, each form has multiple data. In our case it has multiple fields. That's why all these fields are sent in array. All you need to remember is that their array names or their text field names, they are all accessed using post. So post text name will have name, the name, father name, surname, whatever basically data you are using. In this case using country, country. Okay, so country is basically my select name. So these names are quite important, or if you have named them correctly, they become essentials. So what we did now is we read the data and saved it in variables. Once we have read the data, we come back in our HTML. We have now this form. We can process this form data here as well. We can print the form data here as well, but I don't want to print it. So for example, the first data that we entered, this data, okay, we came here, we enter the data and we click on submit. So once we click on submit, all this data is read by the from the index file and sent to biodata1.php. They are automatically sent to this file. Okay, so this biodata1 has now received this data and actually read it in our biodata HTML. Now we can go and save this data in our database as well if you want to process further. Obviously we have read it, so this file can read the data in and process it and save it in database, validate the data, check the data whether username exists in the server or not, or whatever operations you want to do. Like I said, we will be talking about it later on, but for now we just read the data. Now what happens is this: the user again enters some more data here and clicks on submit. Okay, so in order to process this data, what we need to do is we go before this form, okay, we write something called input. Okay, the type is hidden, the name is same thing, txt name. Okay, this time we give it something called value, this value being question mark chuck php echo echo dollar name semicolon question mark bracket close. Now what we did here is we did a little trick. Without using the database, we tried to pass the data from one file to another. In order to do that, what we did, we created an empty hidden field. Okay, so we created an empty text field which is basically hidden. This text field or input field will not be visible to the user. We gave it a value of php echo name, which we just saved in our file here, php equal $name. We received the data from one file, saved it in a variable, and then hid it inside the form, so we can pass this data to the next file. Okay, this is typically not a very recommended method, but sometimes we do this and we process some hidden information from one file to another without saving it inside a text field. So I save this code, Ctrl S, come back here, come back here, come back here, come back here, and come back here. All these 6 fields will be hidden: text name, text, for example, father name, php echo, and this will be father name, text, and which was my what was my name is, for example, gender, txt gender, gender, and php echo, this will again be gender, gender. I think we created this variable. Text name can be radio, we have now something called religion. Okay, and then is it here? Okay, okay, text religion, and echo $RELIGION, religion. Text name instead of name can be, for example, Cnic. We have used this variable name again, and then instead of this name, Cnic name. Done. Finally, it's called country. Text name, text COUNTRY, country, and echo COUNTRY, country. Now what we did two things further. We read the data from a one PHP file onto second. Okay, so the data that came from index is now available in Biodata. But instead of saving the data in a database, because currently we are not using database, we need to send this data now to Biodata 2 as well, so that all this data now can be processed. So what we did now is we read this data, okay, and we save this entire data in something called a hidden text fields. These text fields will not be used or not be visible to the user, but they would be basically visible or basically visible to the server, and the server will read this data once the submit button is clicked. Okay, and then once it is read, it is again sent to the PHP data too. Let's just come back here, and then once I click on PHP Biodata and let me save it here. Once with this Biodata page is loaded, again the same thing we need to do with this one. We come back here, bracket start question mark PHP. We write it in front of at the initial beginning. Okay, so once this Biodata is loaded, it needs to read the data that came from index Biodata. Now it needs to store it. So what we do is we come back into Biodata first. Let me copy these variables. We come back here, save it. So text name, father name, and I think this is again now text gender, text CNIC, and txt country. Okay, so I use the same thing, just copy pasted every variable in Biodata 2 as well. I renamed it because now the data we have already got from the text field has been saved in text countries. All these variable names is essential. So what we do, we created a hidden text field, we save the data temporarily there. Once the form is sent, then again that hidden data is sent to the third form. Okay, so this data from data 1 is now sent to the data 2 file, a hidden form. This is the data actually they are coming from index 1 file. From this point forth, we again need some more variables. For example, the data 1 again is asking the user to enter his email. So I come here and I will enter, for example, email and equals to $_post give me email. Okay, bracket start txt email semicolon. Similarly, I think contact number, contact is equals to $_post bracket start bracket close quotation marks. Okay, this time we are using address, contact address. Okay, so we come back here and we give contact, so txt contact semicolon, again this time address is equals to $_post bracket start bracket close bracket and then inverted quotations, this time txt and address address, if this is the correct variable name. Yes. Okay, so this is the from data read from what we called index.php. Okay, so let me comment here, data from index.php. This is basically comment data from biodata1.php, Ctrl S. Okay, so now we have all this data available in my Biodata 2 page. Within this page, now what we need to do is we need to go and read all this information, and now again the same concept occurs that I need to take all this information in my Biodata 2 and take the additional information that I've given in my Biodata 2 and save it in another hidden data values. So I come inside my input value 1 and I take all this, Ctrl C, all the input hidden input fields, so I don't have to type them all again. Come back here, before the form ends, I come back here and this data. So text name equals name, text father name, Fname, gender, religion, CNIC, text country, all these variables basically are again same. So basically all these variable data is again entered exactly the same way. finally Control C, and I need to enter 1, 2, 3 data. Okay, this is again data from biodata1.php, which is basically your email. So I will say email, country, your contact, and your ADDRE address. Okay, and the values that are supposed to be given here are again echo email, and this is supposed to be contact. Okay, and then finally instead of country it's supposed to be address. I think that's what we did, add for address. Okay, so now what we did, again the same concept, take the data from input 1, save it in biodata 2, then hide it inside a text field 1, again pass the entire data secretly to biodata 2, read the entire data from biodata 2, and then hide that biodata data again inside a hidden field. Now we need to create a third final page that will display my entire CV. Okay, that display page can be my final display page that reads this entire information and processes that entire information, and now prints that information on a web page. So the target was that we'll be editing this HTML page, but this is now going to take me very long time, okay, to edit it. So let's just use a simple HTML for now, and we can see, yes, I guess we can just edit this, because I was hoping that we will print a portfolio here, but this is already taking a very long time. So let's just go for a simple HTML, and then I will you can basically see how we can enter the data. So once we are here, now we create another new file, or let's just try to use it for God's sake. Okay, so if I come back here, CV, this is our folder. I have this template downloaded somewhere on my D drive, web engineering, website templates, nope, sorry, templates, creative CV. So this is the basic template file that is available for us. So what we can do is, I can copy this entire folder. Again, this is a free template downloaded from internet. So I can copy this entire folder, and I can come back into my CV creator and paste the file here. Okay, so once we are here, I copy paste, and this is an HTML file. Let's just open this HTML file in our system. So I open this index.html. Now again, we already have an index.php, so we basically need to rename this file. So what I do is I rename this here, and let's just rename it, for example, final CV. Okay, and if I double click, open it, in fact let's just save it as file, save as final CV.php. Okay, save it. So this file is now saved. So if I go back into my biodata, I have a submit button available. So what happened when I click on this submit button, the action, instead of PHP, this one, now I will write final CV.php. Okay, so let's just try this for now. So if I save it, come back into my browser and come back here, and let's just delete this, press enter. So my CV creator website is there. Basic CV structure is there. I have provided some data. Obviously you can have more data inside it. Click on submit, so it displays the next page. Okay, so I come here, enter the data, click on submit, so the next page is displayed. I come here, I enter the data. These fields are not required. I have not specified them to be what we call required. You can have a start date, you can have an end date. We just basic data is there. Okay, once it is there, we have a submit button. I don't know why it jumped to the top. Let's just correct that. Once we click on the submit button, hopefully it should load the main final CV.php page. Okay, so this page is loaded. So we see the link is basically working. The only problem is the data that is missing. Okay, so we can display the data, we can show the data in our forms. how do we display or show the data? Now we come into the final PHP. In this case, again we give question mark PHP and question mark close this. Bam. Okay, so I need to read the data here. This is my actual final CSS. Again, it contains lots of code. We will not worry about that. This is a template that we download. We just need to edit some of this description contents. In this case, I come back on the field. I read all this data. Ctrl C, paste it here. So all this data is done. At the same time, now I need to read the data from Biodata 2 as well. Okay, the Biodata 2 is also needed to be read, because what is now means is that we read the data from file 1, we read the data from file 2, now we need to read the data from file 3. We have used the same text coordinations, and now we come back here again $sign, and the third data we had, for example, school. So we can say it's starting from SCHOOL school is equals to $sign underscore post bracket start bracket close question mark. Okay, within this we now specify, for example, txt SCHOOL school. $sign we have COLLEGE college is equals to $sign underscore post bracket start bracket close quotation marks, and we can say next COLLEGE college. Again, don't forget your semicolons and $sign. This time university is equals to $sign underscore post bracket start bracket close semicolon question marks txt UNIV. Okay, if I remember the names correctly. So if I come back into the data form, you will find that data univ is the form name, and input type, where is it? Yes, text univ, text college, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have read these three data for our sakes. Similarly, date can also be read and fed in the form values. Okay, so this thing is now done in our main HTML file. Okay, now inside this HTML file we need to edit. So inside here, for example, wherever there is Anthony Burnett, let me copy this, come here, I need to edit this text. So let me just reduce the font size so I can also read the text clearly. I come here, there's a lots of content here available. The template is there. What we start to do is we start to change the contents, headings, and whatever description we want to change. Okay, so create CV, for example, that's already the template that I searched for and downloaded. That's the metadata links. If you don't like all this, you can remove this, some of the metadata, but again the links are there that uses all these features, and Bootstrap files are inside this code. So the template is already created, we don't have to worry about that. Just need to go and edit the text. So if I come back here, you see create CV heading is there, about portfolio of experiences. These are things that I can add. Currently all these links are blank. First I need to change the name here. Okay, so I just come back, and wherever is Anthony Burnett, I can write bracket start question mark PHP space question mark PHP. Now this basically means that the rest of the code is entirely in HTML. Only that particular name will be dynamically generated, making my website dynamic. So whatever data I entered in my previous forms will now be entered here. In this case, I will be writing the name echo simply $name. That's it. So whatever name I entered in my index, which I transferred to Biodata 1, which I transferred to Biodata 2, which then I transferred to final CV without using the database, is now printed here. Okay, obviously this is a long tiresome process, but the trick is we are transferring the data from one PHP to another, from that PHP to another. We read the data, we hide it in hidden fields, we then send it to the next PHP. The next PHP again reads the data, hides it inside an hidden field, and passes it on. So it's a small trick, but it allows us to process the data very conveniently. Finally, when we read the data, we now have HTML available. In order to make this dynamic, basically this is the PHP code that we used here. What this now means, we incorporated the PHP in our title. What is our basically motive? Again, I have not included that field in my information. I could have done that, I haven't done it. So we can, for example, leave it here: web developer, graphic designer, photographer, whatever text it is. Okay. Or you can add, for example, your university name here. You can add, for example, what other information you want to add here. Or obviously your slogan, your objectives, you can ask the user to give this data here, and we can enter the data inside Perform. So once we here Control S this, and hire me, download the CV, we can give the links for these files as well. At the bottom now I just come here: hello, I am Anthony Burnett. I can say hello, I am. Now I need to change the content here. Here I will write question mark PHP. Okay, and then question mark bracket close, and then again dollar name. Sorry, then again I would write echo echo. Instead of this string, I would write dollar name semicolon. So now instead of this Anthony Burnett, it will have an PHP code which will automatically produce the name that we entered previously. Typically, we will connect this with a database, and these names will now be fetched from a database. But now, because we are not using database, we are using a little trick without using database, passing the data from one page to another. So this is what we do. So see, all the time now I could have asked the user to give me the, for example, the specialization. Okay, and then I've passed that variable on, and I can enter this data here as well. So for now, let me just leave it blank. Creative CV, resume templates, professional, blah 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 things. I don't want to add that. I want to say father name is, name is, then again question bracket start question mark PHP space question mark close bracket. So now again I need to enter the dynamic content here, content fed from database, or in this case from previous forms. Here I will just simply use $fname, father name, semicolon with echo. Okay, just don't use the variable, you need to use echo. Echo means send this data to your HTML. So once we do that, now my father name will be appearing in my name. A link reference, I can have, for example, my website template or whatever links I've asked the user to profiles, or I can ask for whatever purpose I want. Okay, so we can change that. In our case, I just leave this to blank. So for example, I just leave it to blank, and in fact hash Control S. I don't want to lose the link, so I just use it this way. Now comes here basic information. Again, we forgot to take the age, but now whatever information we took from our user, we need to enter it here. So in this case, it can be, what can it be? It can be, if I come back up to the post, what information did I forgot? What information we took? So we have father name, name, gender, for example. So let's just come back here. So we have come here, and we can, instead of age, gender, okay, semicolon, and strong, this is 24. So this is where basically the date is supposed to go. So whenever you edit the template, you just need to understand that you find the keywords that are used in your template and you change them. Okay, in our case the word was age. I'm not using age, so I changed the age to gender, and then the value of the gender is supposed to be 24. For example, if I come back here, where is it? Sorry, yes, age is supposed to be 24. So this word is now 24 gender, and I need to change this 24. So in our code, when you edit the template, you just find that 24 next to that word. So here again, this value is supposed to be dynamic. So I write PHP code bracket and PHP code. So this again becomes my dynamic code. So my website would basically behave like I want to behave. So instead of using a string, I would now use dollar gender. Okay, simply. So this dollar gender is again a variable that has been created almost at here. Okay, dollar gender, which is already read from our previous systems. Perfect, very nicely done. Okay, so dollar gender is done. Email address, so instead of this email, I can go question mark PHP bracket question mark close, and then again echo this with closing this string, and I will use dollar email. Okay, semicolon. So what I do is now I copy this code. So this is the dynamic piece of code. Every time the for every user this website will now be different, because every user will be entering their data. Finally they would see a simple website template with their own content available. So very simply a website is generated. Phone number, I can just come back here and delete it. Instead of email, I had a variable called contact. I will use that information here. Similarly, address, instead of giving this address here, I will leave the variable here, but instead of this address, I will add a dynamic code and I will add address information. Okay, I think add Ctrl S, add, because if I remember the variable name correctly, it's add for address. Done. Beautiful. So we have changed the address. Language again can be, for example, what other information did we ask? That we have religion, for example. So instead of language, let me use religion, religion, religion. And instead of French, English, tongue, instead of country, for example, instead of religion, I can use country, and here again I can use country, country. Okay, let's test this up till now. Okay, so if I go back into my browser and I remove this URL so that I have a CV creator. So enter the name, I gave it name, I gave it father name, said it's a male, I gave it its number. Okay, the CNIC is given, the religion, for example, Alhamdulillah Islam, country being Pakistan, click on submit. So what happens? This data is sent secretly to page 2, which holds this data but doesn't displays it yet. So this data is present here, we can display it here, we should have displayed it for better understanding, but we didn't do that. Let's go here. So email address, for example, I can give my email address, contact information, for example, any number, and my house address, click on submit. So now finally school name, for example, let me give the city, college, for example, can be again HYDER, Hyderabad, and the university can be, for example, Sun University. So we enter the data and we click on the submit button. As soon as we click on the submit button, now you see the name is changed. Okay, the picture, we haven't asked the user to give me a picture. We can change the picture as well. We can upload the picture and change that as well. Basic gender information, male, email, phone number, address, country. Voila, we changed our website. Zeeshan, the father name is here. We can have any slogans, any information, any description that we want to put here. Beautiful. See? So simply we created our own portfolio based CV website. I can ask user to upload an image and I can change the image here. I can ask for them the slogans. Now basically whatever content you need to provide. So for example, professional skills, we haven't asked these things, but the more data you have, again, it will take longer lecture. So the basic idea now you understand that we can now change all this information. We can ask the user to fill in a certain data, and then this website template can be edited very simply. So if I come down here, now professional skills, see this, so this value is given. So we can give it based on how much skills I have. So 80%, 90%, and this information would automatically be changing based on that. So it's 80%, 80% value is changing for HTML. So I can ask the user how much skill level of you are in HTML, in CSS, or in what other fields, whatever you want to put up here, and then user can enter that data. For that data, then we can change this thing dynamically. Again, in order to change the dynamic content, we just use $PHP and close $PHP and that variable value. This variable value is now being dynamically fed. So every time a new user comes into the browser, they give a different value. This value would now change. So for example, if I change this thing, go back to my CV creator, I say ABCDE, I say ABCDEFGH, and then I can say female, for example, number can be 0000, religion can be Islam, country can be, for example, Malaysia. I hit a submit. That data is now secretly sent to this page and added to the hidden text fields, not displayed. Now we are asking user for another email. So I said test. I come here, I add a contact number. Okay, I add an address in my case. Okay, so submit. School, I said yes. And date, I'm not giving the date, I've not made them compulsory. You can make it compulsory as well by simply using the required field, and then yes, just click on submit. You would see ABCD. If I come down here, hello, I am ABCD. See this name now completely changes. You create a website and whoever the user is, he is dynamically getting a different content based on the form you provide. And we have not yet used the database. So this is a simple technique we use to pass the data from one PHP to another PHP to another PHP. We using the server backend. Again, remember this is all being done through server. If you shut down the server, you will not be able to access and visit all these websites. Father name again ABCD, gender name. See, this all data is basically dynamically being fed, and my CV is completely being generated. You can use any template you want from a website, download them, and then you can edit the content of those templates very easy, very conveniently. Just come here and find the fields that you need to change. Do not change any other content. Do not change, again, the hint is that we don't change the tags. We just change the text that is basically required to be changed. Okay, and our CV template is created. Hopefully you understand this, a little typical process, but it's a helpful process that you need to go through. We created an index.html, we created a form. Okay, within that form we had certain text fields, we created a button. That button again is a submit button which will submit the data for text field automatically to this action file using a method called post. Post is important because in the next file that we entered, okay, this is the file that will read the data. This is something that we do every time we work PHP. We have one file, submit is clicked, the data is sent to another file reads the data. Same file can do it, but typically we send it to another file, it reads the data, processes it, and that process in our case was we read the data, saved it in a variable. Next time in next classes we will see that we use the same data and we save it in a database, and then we read this, then we don't need to use this hidden fields. So if you use the database, here we will read the data, open a network connection, save the files in the database, save all this content in the database. Once that is done, we just process this data. And then this next input field is not required. But because we are not using database, we are passing information from one file to another, This is one way of doing it. Read the data, hide it in a hidden field, and then send it with the next form. Then the next file again reads the entire data, hides it in the hidden field, and then passes on. Okay, so hopefully this is explanatory. I will try to upload this code on the LMS as well, so you can access it and process it. Okay, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments and feedback, if you don't understand anything, let me know in the comments and I will try to help you out. Fi amanullah. Thank you.